Hello. Today I'm going to be reviewing the QAR strategy, also known as question-answer relationship. In this strategy, there are four types of questions that are asked after reading a text. They can be completed independently with small groups or in whole class instruction. By engaging in the QAR strategy, this will help students understand the different types of questions and strategies to answer them. It inspires them to think creatively, work cooperatively, and use higher level thinking skills. Today, I'm going to model how to answer the four types of questions using this text that I use in my social studies classroom in the 5th grade. This book, From Slave Ship to Freedom Road, is a nonfiction picture storybook that presents a series of magnificent paintings by Rod Brown, portraying the story of slavery, beginning on the infamous ships of the Middle Passage to the cruelty they faced as enslaved people, to their final freedom. Acclaimed author of To Be a Slave has written the story in conjunction with these images that challenges the reader to not only see the pain and grief, but the hope and triumph of the enslaved. This is a true testimony to the strength and endurance of our ancestors. Slavery is such a complex topic to teach middle schoolers, but through these four types of questionings, we can really get these students to dig deep and to understand the horrific world of slavery. So the first type of questioning is called the right there question. This answer is stated in the text. The author explicitly states this. It is always found in one place. It's also known as a in the book question. So before I read the question, I'm just going to read aloud the passage to you. Running away was common. People ran because they had been mistreated, or they were afraid they were going to be sold, or they just wanted to be free. Posters offering rewards for the capture of runaways were as much a part of the Southern landscape as mosquito bites in the spring. In North Carolina, slaves ran away to the mountains and were taken in by Cherokee Indians. Slaves from Georgia and Alabama disappeared into Florida, which until 1819 belonged to Spain, and thus was outside the laws of the United States. The runaways joined the Seminole Indians and made forays back into Georgia and Alabama to free more slaves. In Virginia, slaves ran away and disappeared into a forbidding and almost impenetrable area called the Great Dismal Swamp. They lived there for decades, creating small villages of runaway slaves. Many slaves escaped to free states in the north, while others went farther north into Canada. But for all those who ran away, most were caught and brought back to the white patrols, or paddy rollers, as the slaves called them. They stumbled and fell as they were pulled and dragged by a rope tied to a horse's saddle horn. They were brought back to be made examples of, so the other slaves could see what would happen to them if they tried to escape. For some, dying in the effort to be free was better than being a slave. Samuel got caught. It didn't mean Samuel wouldn't try again and again and again. So my question is, who were the people that caught and brought back the runaway slaves to their owners? Who? This should be explicitly stated right there in the text. Let's see if I can find that answer. Well, they talked about getting caught in the last paragraph. So I have here that they were caught and brought back by white patrols or paddy rollers, as the slaves called them. So I think my answer is paddy rollers. The author explicitly states this right there in the text. My next type of question is think and search. It is right there in the text, but it's not in one spot. It is found in multiple spots. So I have to combine all the pieces of information and put them together. So let's see what this one does. Where did the slaves run away to? There was more than one answer. This was not found in one sentence. So I had that in the second paragraph. I know I read that there. So let's see all the places they ran away to. They ran away to the mountains, the Cherokee Indians. They disappeared into Florida. The runaways joined with Seminole Indians. Slaves ran away. Also a swamp. They ran to a swamp. They escaped to free states in the north. This went into Canada. So with this type of question, it's more about scanning the information. I have to scan multiple sentences and maybe even multiple pages to find the answer to this question. So that's how the think and search question is a little bit different than the right there question. It also can be broken down into subcategories, which is great for fourth graders and above to learn: simple list, sequence, explanation, or description. So my next set of questions is not in the book, it is in my head. So an author and me question. The author gives clues that are combined with what you know to figure out the answer. So I have to use the text, but I also have to use my background and prior knowledge to make these connections to answer this question. This can also be broken down into text to world, text to self, and text to theme. The author states on page 21, they were brought back to be made examples of, so the other slaves could see what would happen to them if they tried to escape. Examine the picture on page 20. What do you think the slaves in the field thought when they saw him being dragged back like this? Okay, so I don't remember reading what the slaves thought. So just like in the question said, it says why they were dragged by a rope. So that is probably what the slave owner thought. But my question is, what did the slaves in the field thought? This is not stated in the text. I have to use the text, but I can also use the picture to help me answer this question. I have to think about my own background knowledge. Okay, so this man right here is looking down. That means he must be feeling sad. So maybe he's thinking he could be disappointed that the man caught, or maybe he's sad that he's going to be punished. These other slaves in the field, they stopped working and they're just staring. So maybe they're shocked or in disbelief. Maybe they're afraid for this man and what's going to happen to him, or afraid for themselves. So I use the text, I use the picture, but I had to use my own knowledge of the images and about slavery to answer this question. And the last question is also in my head, but this is called on my own. What's great about this question is it's more about the big picture, the big ideas, the essential questions, as we say in our content areas. You don't have to have read the text to answer this question. So with slavery comes some really uncomfortable conversations. The N word is a very uncomfortable conversation to have with 10-year-olds. But it is very important that they understand the impact of word choice and how words have meaning, good and bad. So I'm not going to read this section out loud, but if I were to read this out loud, I would not say the word, and I would give my students a heads up that this is coming, and we would talk a little bit about the history of the word. We need to inform them about the origins of this word. The author in this book does a really great job of really making the reader immerse themselves in. So here in this text, it said, they called us that from our first cry to our last breath. It ain't nothing but a word, some might say. But words hurt like whips, and they leave scars you can't see and what don't never heal. You might think that what hurt us slaves the most was the beatings, but there's a lot worse than getting whooped. That is really difficult for students to think of. What could be worse than getting whooped? So this idea of words being painful and leaving scars you can't see. So maybe kids or anybody could think about a time when somebody said something to them that they couldn't forget. And it really impacted them and made them upset, it made them angry, and they still remember it to this day. I think kids would have a lot to say about that. So taking a really tough subject, but making it relatable on my own, we can answer this question: how can words be painful without having to have read this text? So those are the 4 types of questions. So what do we do with this? In the initial instruction, you want to explicitly teach the 4 types of questions. In the primary grades, you'll analyze the differences. And in 4th grade and above, you can build into those subcategories with longer passages. You want to read the passage aloud, just like I did. And then you read the question and model thinking aloud, deciding what question type that is, and then model how to find the answers. So that could be done with a simple graphic organized like this, where you have a question written right here, and then model thinking aloud what type of question that is and circling the answer, and then writing or typing the answer in the last box. With enough practice, enough exposure, the kids could then create their own questions. That's how you truly know if they understand the 4 different types of questioning. I guarantee you, if you take any questions that you already have built into your lessons, but now frame it into this mindset of the QAR, I think your students are going to become much more independent in answering their questions, and you're going to find much better comprehension results. Have a great day, everybody.